Good evening, Tansei Anine. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. Manitoba RCMP announced today that the remains of Melinda Lynxleg were found during a search of an abandoned property in western Manitoba. At a Winnipeg news conference today, her family spoke. APTN's Leanne Sanders was there.
Whoever's responsible has robbed more than one life. They've affected our whole family.
Betty Lynxleg is Melinda Lynxleg's aunt. She says the family has some closure now that they can bring her home. Missing since March 31st, 2020 from Tutanau-Wazabing Treaty Reserve, RCMP say the 40-year-old mother of 6 was the victim of homicide. Major crimes investigator Laura Ledrew says they found Lynxleg's remains at an abandoned property near San Clara, Manitoba this week, but did not reveal what led investigators to that property to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation.
We did hear information from community members. We'd heard a couple stories. People came forward, which essentially led us to the property where we ended up finding her eventually. But
Ledrew would also not reveal if they had a suspect in Lynxleg's homicide. Media reports at the time of her disappearance said Lynxleg was last seen walking down a gravel road near the community's COVID-19 blockade, but never logged in. Betty Lynxleg says Melinda's adult daughter and her parents have been hit especially hard, but it's affected her entire large extended family.
We believe that justice will be served in the Anishinaabe way. We have our own traditional law. It's called the law of the Ojine. Ojine law is coming. And that law is when you hurt someone or you harm someone, that there will be repercussions, there'll be consequences.
Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
When RCMP in BC announced recently that they uncovered the remains of a missing young woman associated with the infamous Highway of Tears, other families began to wonder if they would ever know what happened to their loved ones. APTN's Tina House has this story.
Highway 16 is known as the Highway of Tears. It runs from Prince George, BC to Prince Rupert, BC, and is described as a long and lonely stretch of highway, a vast area surrounded by trees and wilderness, and an area that holds many secrets. Over the years, dozens of people have gone missing or have been found murdered along that infamous highway. Many families are still seeking answers, but for the Scott family, they finally have closure. Recently, the RCMP announced they discovered the remains of 20-year-old Madison Scott. She was found just one day after the 12-year anniversary of when she disappeared. Her remains were found on a rural property, 18 kilometers away from where she was last seen. It was here at Hog's Back Lake that Madison was attending a party on May the 28th with a friend. Her friend was supposed to camp with her that night, but left Madison alone in the tent and went home after the friend injured herself. The next day, Madison's truck and tent were found, but Madison was gone. The news of Madison's discovery has re-triggered years of trauma for many other families still looking for their loved ones, including Gladys Raddick, whose own niece, Tamara Chipman, has been missing from the Highway of Tears for almost 19 years. Raddick, along with Bernie Williams, have walked across Canada 7 times, raising awareness.
When I heard the news, I was kind of devastated, and I was also elated for the family. You know, we walked and we prayed really hard for Madison Scott. We wanted her family to get closure, of course, you know, as family members, and we were all really praying hard for her, that they would find her safe, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
For other family members like Marlene Jack, she has spent every single day trying to find answers about her missing family, but is happy that Madison was found.
I was grateful that they did find her, but I was upset also because my family is still missing.
Her sister Doreen vanished along with her husband Ronnie and their 2 boys, Russell and Ryan, who were 5 and 9 years old at the time, from Prince George, BC. The last time they were heard from was when Ronnie phoned his mom to tell her that he and Doreen had met a man in a pub and that they were offered work in a logging camp. He also told his mother the man said there was childcare available, but they had to leave that night. Desperate for work, they agreed. This is the sketch that witnesses claim what the man looked like that they were talking to. They were never heard from ever again. They were officially reported missing on August the 25th, 1989. Marlene Jack wrote this heartfelt letter to her missing sister, which was recently published in the Megaphone magazine.
It pains me so much not knowing what happened to you. I think of all the abuse we suffered, and I wish I could have taken it all away from you. You always protected us, you always saved us. If you were here right now, you would never leave my sight again. Every day I ask our Creator to give me strength and to help me find you.
The Jack family is the only case in Canada where an entire family has gone missing. Marlene says she feels investigators made many mistakes and didn't take their case seriously.
My sister and her family matter. Like, I don't understand. I just don't. You just blows me away that you'd make so many mistakes and admit it and say I'd never have justice for my family, and then phoning me and telling me I need to stop looking for my family, telling me you need to stop, you need to live on with your life. No, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give up.
APTN has reached out to the Prince George RCMP for comment about these allegations, but we did not hear back by the time this story went to air. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
A grassroots community outreach group is trying to bring positivity and hope to a downtown Winnipeg park that many describe as an unsafe and unstable environment. Located right next to APTN World Headquarters, the area known as Air Canada Window Park has become notorious for drug and alcohol use and often violent incidents. But as Dennis Ward reports, others say the park provides them with a sense of community and even a home.
In the late afternoon, the sound of the drum can be heard coming from the park outside of APTN headquarters in downtown Winnipeg. The drum circle is the idea of Matthew Davidson, who says the reaction so far has been heartwarming.
It's beautiful to see that the simplest thing as just a drumming performance and how much positivity that can bring.
But Davidson, who is the co-founder of the Spirit Horse Initiative, has bigger plans to address the concerns with this corner of the city, known as Air Canada Window Park, using an action therapy model.
We're going to be boots on the ground, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and providing mental health supports, addiction supports, crisis intervention, and it's our hopes that we're going to be able to effectively track those metrics to showcase the effectiveness of the program.
Davidson says a primary care paramedic has also offered to work alongside the group to help alleviate the number of calls to Winnipeg Fire Paramedic, who are in the park almost daily. They also want to help combat the sexual exploitation of women that Davidson says is a very serious issue in this area of the downtown. Winnipeg Police Service says it does not track crime data specifically on the park, but that foot patrols are frequently in the park and surrounding area as it is, quote, deemed an area of concern.
There's a lot of, generational traumas that need some healing, that need some elder support, that need some ceremony. So, it can be dangerous, but I think within this working model, it is something that can be effectively handled in a gentle, nurturing way, just so every person within this, whether they're workers or whether they're just utilizing the park, feels safe and secure.
Davidson is taking his approach into a meeting with the city's mayor in the coming weeks. Just last week, a Winnipeg city councillor came under fire for complaining about, quote, drugged out zombies on Winnipeg streets. He has since apologized. Davidson says people with that mindset need to sit down and have a conversation with the people they think are the so-called zombies.
It opens your eyes to how good some people do have it, because we're talking about sexual abuse, we're talking about 60 scoop survivors, residential school survivors.
I was taken away when I was young. I was in CFS since I was 5 till I was 18.
Teresa Bauer is originally from Pimachikamak Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. For the past few years, she says she's been living on the bench in front of APTN, along with roughly 25 other people who live in the park.
And you know what? They're safe because we watch over them. The one that watches over them are the watchers. People take turns. Who sleeps, stays up.
Bauer won't use the shelters after she says she was nearly sexually assaulted at one. The park, she says, gives her a sense of belonging, and she rarely feels concerned for her safety.
There's no ever hard drugs here. They don't allow ish here. They don't allow down. The things that are killing people, they don't sell that here. We don't allow that here.
A $2.5 million makeover of this park is set to begin this summer. Bauer doesn't know where she will go when that gets underway. Air Canada Window Park is a microcosm of what's happening in communities across the country. A place for people who often have nowhere else to go, like Norville Tate.
Community. Everybody here is like community, like no one has to go to no Salvation Army, no one has to go to no hostel and stuff like that. Everybody here, like everybody treats everybody like family.
Winnipeg's downtown business improvement zone says on June 12th, the design firm in charge of the revamp will be sharing updates on the park's future. Davidson says people must be at the heart of the plan.
We got to keep it beautiful and vibrant. We can't push people away. It's not effective. It's not humane. It's something that we just have to be able to work with one another to be able to make sure that everyone's safe, secure, supported, loved.
A fence is expected to go up around this park sometime in August when construction is expected to begin. But some in the park warn that fence will come down the same day it goes up. Dennis Ward, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
All right, we have to pause the news briefly here. We'll have more news when we come back. Welcome back to APTN National News. The province of Quebec is still ablaze with several forest fires burning from east to west. Many First Nations have been evacuated, but one lucky Innu community has been able to return home. Shushan Bicon and Jeff Dorn were there on the ground to get their reaction.
5 days after a stressful evacuation, Manny Newtonam is back home, even though 3 fires are still burning a few kilometers to the north of the community. Along with the rain, a feeling of relief fills the air. It has been just 3 hours since the evacuation order was lifted.
J'étais à Bécomo dans l'hôtel Travel Lodge, puis on était une gang, on écoutait, puis on était heureux, on a tous crié, puis on dit on retourne à la maison. Ça n'a pas pris 5 minutes que c'était pacté nos affaires, puis ah ouais, go à Malio.
When Omar Saint-Onge was forced to leave with his family, he was more than a little concerned. They disliked the idea of leaving their home unattended to the potential of raging fires.
Toutes les affaires précieuses, le tableau ici, ça n'a pas de prix ces affaires-là.
While the population is back, customers return too.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Quebec's premier was in nearby Sept-Îles to assess the damage and applaud the efforts of those who fought the fires. Francois Legault also took time to thank the Innu community of Pesmet, as well as the neighboring towns who welcomed the evacuees.
Ce qui est important de dire, c'est qu'on est, c'est rare qu'on dit ça, très, très content de voir la pluie On aimerait ça que ça soit la même chose à d'autres endroits comme en Abitibi.
The rain may bring hope, but there are still nearby fires raging.
Il y a un immense feu actuellement là, qu'on appelle le feu 378 qui est dans le coin de la rivière Moisy qui va prendre des semaines avant d'être éteint complètement.
According to Chief of Washat Macmany Newtnam, Mike McKenzie says there is always a possibility of more evacuations.
Ça met un nombre de kilomètres avant d'évacuer des personnes, fait que c'est important. Nous, on est très proches dans les communautés. Ça va quand même continuer à avoir des interventions dans les deux comités de mesures d'urgence, que ça Washat maintenant, puis la ville de Sept-Îles.
Mario Vachon is the chief of Pessamit. She is impressed with how her community rallied to help the people of Many Newtnam from the forest fires, something Pessamit endured in 1991.
Moi, je suis fière de Pessamit. C'est une grande fierté pour moi de voir que nos gens collaborent très bien. Ils connaissent la situation et sont vraiment là. L'entraide est là.
Others took buses from Pessamit to return home.
Bienvenue à Manitoba. No madam ne no got to time the shit. How much that in Melinda Lynxleg.
Even if a return to normal life came with the rain, underneath that joy, anxiety remains, fanned by the flames still burning across the north. A story by Shushan Bacon and Jeff Dorn, APTN National News, Many Newtnam, Quebec.
The current and the former CEO of APTN were before a Senate committee this week to talk about Bill C-18. The bill would force social media companies such as Facebook and Google to compensate news organizations when they post or link to their stories. Monica Ile and Jean LaRose both told the Committee on Transport and Communications about Indigenous storytelling and the role it plays in news production that benefits all Canadians.
And telling our stories, like my mom told me, is part of our healing journey. So we will give voice to the people, to the victims, so there could be there and put it out there so people, especially non-Indigenous people, have a better understanding. So that's when we talk about Indigenous storytelling, is giving our side of the stories and how that impacts or has an influence on Indigenous people and communities.
A new report by Saskatchewan's Auditor General finds the province's polytechs need to address a drop in Indigenous graduation rates. The schools provide trade and apprentice training and have had an Indigenous student success strategy in place since 2018, but the number of Indigenous graduates dropped from 827 in 2018 to 648 in 2021. Auditor Tara Clement made several recommendations to improve outcomes for Indigenous students going forward. She found there are no enrollment or retention targets and recommends a review to determine if the strategy is working.
If you do look at some of the data, over 94%, I believe it is, of the Indigenous students that do graduate from SAS Polytech do end up employed though. So it shows that successfully from an employment standpoint, and once somebody has obtained and gone through the programming and graduated from SAS Polytech, they will end up employed after.
We have to take one final break here now. We do have one more great story still to come, so stick around. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Doug Shanos of the Gitxsan Nation takes a break near his smokehouse as our photo of the day today. Doug has been catching salmon along the Skeene River for 8 decades. Thanks so much to Clarence Jones for sharing this picture. You can share your pictures by sending them to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning on the East Coast, 15 in Halifax and 16 in Fredericton. 9 degrees in Cartwright and 19 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 19 in Quebec City and 23 in Montreal. Mix of sun and cloud and 27 in Toronto and 25 in North Bay. Some showers and 18 in Wawa and some showers and 18 in Thunder Bay. Clear and 23 in Churchill and clear and 22 in Norway House. 22 and sun in Barons River, and 23 and clear in Winnipeg. Clear and 25 in Regina, and 28 degrees in North Battleford. 27 and clear in Buffalo Narrows, and 29 and clear in Stony Rapids. As we keep heading west to 32 degrees in Fort Chipewyan and 28 in Grand Prairie, 30 in Edmonton and 25 in Calgary, 16 in showers in Vancouver and 17 in Campbell River, 15 in Sandspit and 24 in Fort Nelson, 17 and clear in Whitehorse and 17 in Rock River, 19 in Norman Wells and 25 in Trout Lake, 4 degrees in Fort McPherson and 13 in Colville Lake, 1 degree in Cambridge Bay and 17 in Whale Cove, -1 in Arctic Bay and 6 degrees in Iqaluit. The Whitehorse Airport was a scene of celebration this week as Tlingit from northern BC and the Yukon welcomed the return of an important cultural item. As Sarah Connors tells us, it's a homecoming over 100 years in the making.
It's a welcome party truly like no other. After a ceremonial robe was taken from the Tlingit along the Taku River in the late 18th century, its rightful owners are celebrating the return of their much-beloved cultural item.
I want to make sure that everybody hears this. We brought her home!
With help from a local Atlanite, the Taku River Tlingit First Nation in Atlan, BC, purchased the robe from an auction house for close to $50,000 late last year. After months of restoration work at UBC in Vancouver, the robe has finally come home. For Tlingit and Atlan in the Yukon, its return is cause for celebration.
And this is really major for all of our Dakan Nation to have our piece of history come back to us, a piece of our ancestors come back to us now after years of being away.
Wrapped in a nondescript box marked fragile, there's hope the robe will serve as medicine for the wounds left from residential school.
This robe was created before all of that. And so it's going to bring back some healing to our people.
Officials say the federal government has since paid the First Nation back for the cost of the robe. A ceremony will be held next month to officially welcome it back into the community.
In history, this is very important to the Tlingit people, that these things start coming home. Why? Because we need to show it off and let people know who we are.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
What a great story to end our Friday news show on. If you happen to miss anything from tonight or from throughout the week, aptnnews.ca will have those stories for you. That's going to do it for us tonight. For all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech, Kinanaskamatin, and have a great night.